Hello and welcome to Impact News. You're watching Agenda Manipur with me, Yumnam Rupachandra. Ngasi akoina khanagadori basi Agenda Manipur da hojik chathriba Sangai Festival gi backdrop ta Manipur da hojik Manipur Myanmar gi conservation culture amasung heritage conserve tongnaba chathriba conference gi matang dani conference asi tongan ba mapan lamdagi yamna haisinglaba powerful loiba panel kaya amana wanganga dori adugi matang da ngasi khanna nena ba ngasi akoi studio da lengsin dun leisi conference asi bu sinbada maru oiba mayai oiba central kanu loriba leadership loriba akoi Somiroy, founder and managing trustee of Imasi Foundation. Thank you for having joining us tonight at Agenda Manipur. Loinana ngasi akoi studio da lengsin dun leisi akoi Myanmar dagi akoi hek thangnaba mayamna Kabo Valley gi matang da yam khanna nei adugi matang da su khanna gani loinana Myanmar akoi Mandle amasung Manipur ga leinaba relationship mayam gi matang da ngasi ka handak conference da ngang na gi damak ngasi ge akoi studio da lengsin leisi. Let me please welcome Dr. Tin Mong Ji. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
Welcome to our show. Tin Mong Ji is a medical doctor by profession, but he became an expert in South Asian history and culture by interest, and he's also a puppeteer. Thank you for joining us tonight here on our show. Luenana, we also have an expert from France, Dr. Francois Tenture. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, he's from India Institute, and he's a scientific advisor of WMF Sue Nando Monastery Project Yangon. Khanane nagadori basi ayamba Manipur amasung Myanmar ani makta leiriba cultural heritage mayamasi conserve to matang dani lakadoriba tourism lakadoriba look is policy lakadoriba economic pressure mayamsi da karmain tawdana aikoigi heritage si kamaina conserve tawgade. We boast about the rich culture and heritage, but will it be swept away with the changing winds of the time? Let's have it from you, Somi, first. Karigino Sigi seminar or workshop, this conference. Why did you feel it important to link it up with Sangai Festival, and what's this conference going to be all about? Just give it a brief intro.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone out there. The conference was actually an idea of my friend Cecily Cook,
Okay.
of the Asian Cultural Council in New York. I was back in New York where I spent a lot of my time there, and we were talking, and she asked me where I'd been. She hadn't seen me in 6 months, and I said I'd been in Manipur, and she asked me what I was doing in Manipur. And we were just chatting and talking, because I used to work with the Asian Cultural Council, and she said, it sounds like what is happening and what is being faced by Manipuri people in Manipur is very similar to what is happening in Myanmar. She said, I've not been to Myanmar, but it sounds very similar. The challenges, the issues, the problems, the richness, the cultures, and therefore, don't you think a conference between Myanmar and Manipur would be a good way of meeting of minds, to form a connection, to help solve problems together, to look at things together? And so that was 2 years ago. And then we flash forward, and I was in conversation with Nidhi Tripathi, who is the Secretary of Tourism in Manipur. And she said, well, why don't we have it as part of our Sangai Festival? And I like the idea very much. Of course, I said, conference, part of the festival. She said, yes, we do have conferences. We have a trade conference, and this can be a cultural conference. I said, of course, I'd be delighted to do so, especially since we'll be bringing friends from Myanmar, such as Dr. Tin Mong Ji, as well as Francois Tenture, who's actually based in Yangon right now.
Okay.
We flew them on the Golden Myanmar chartered flight from Mandalay on the 21st.
Okay.
So I was actually found it very delicious that we have a conference that we can actually fly people on a chartered flight from Mandalay to Impal and actually create history over here. So it's kind of unusual. So everyone in New York is very amused by this. That we have this little conference happening on the border of India, across from Myanmar.
And you have a chartered flight coming in from
It's very fancy. So that's how it happened.
Okay. So, metro na tare. Conference na achieve tau gena khali si karino. In next few days da.
Walk hayeng dagi horaga koi numit humni ne koi na tabudaris.
Okay.
Aduna Myanmar dagi koi la si mi manga ne. Dagi koi mapan dagi America dagi France la ko si Singapore la ko si to ko ni pan ma pan siga akoi gi Manipur da gi mai te su da gi akoi gi su na tang ko ko ga su yaw ga lo me ga su yaw ga akoi culture na da amam presentation ta da akoi si wari sa do adada chahi chani su la kon wari sa na da ba ko na da ba treaty of yam da bo na akoi sambana ma kha gi ba da gi akoi se kya thaina gi dre ha ba aduna masi akoi culture sejana ga akoi gi literature moi gi literature akoi gi puya moi gi puya akoi gi lon moi gi lon akoi gi jagoi moi gi jagoi moi gi ritual mai bi akoi gi mai bi moi gi mai bi masi yeng min raga comparison tawraga juxtaposition tawraga anoba understanding anoba manipurama akoi khangakani hariba
kari importance kari no sigi kanozi does it have by any chance got to do with what India is doing look is policy the act is policy all of the whole economic change that is going to be seen in next couple of decades in this region siga kai pari mari
yes city yamna urgent oibani hariba kai no da khoi se active policies makasi da khoi se yamna chathara kadori very soon India Myanmar Thailand ge khoi road connection ge protocol soitong dori in the next 4 or 5 months aduna masi connection si lakpa Asian highway lakpa adagi train station lakpa flights hujik international airport or lakpa koi Myanmar golden Myanmar flight ka lakpa sige tar motang sida there's going to be a lot of big changes coming
okay
how do we respond what is going to be happen to our cultural heritage akoigi tourism festival da yaw sigi akoigi maru oi ba amana akoina tourism high pami haidana paisa lakani this is good for our development haidana but tourism ge impact se kari oidori bano
precisely
me da koi culture da koi gi swabha
particularly living culture
da what is the impact akoi Hawaii da na akoi gi tourist ki da akoi se Manipuri culture ina tonganam sarag utkadori bra natraga akoi gi culture se karino hana khanga kanda karamaina protection tawgani karamaina promote tawgani akhoina sangai festival mang da karina akhoina Manipur gi culture ne na puthok tari base masi Manipuri culture ana khaliba karamaina khanariba adana Burma gi se hek thangna baga akhoi je bhap ta ba helakani hariba ithanda akhoi gi culture se yengjeradi bhap ta ba se yaude hariba after all we had a science fiction writer called Robert Heinlein. He said if you know only your own language you don't know even your own language
so you want to look at it from a backdrop of another
yes it's only because of comparison and juxtaposition that we can begin to understand not just each other but even ourselves and what is it that we have
root tiba see one of the component we do never but before we get down to that I just want to pull in Dr. G you are here in Imphal. Is it your first time? Is it your first time in India, in Manipur?
Well, we've been trying to come here last 2 years ago, but this is the first time it became successful.
I'm told you know a lot about Manipuris. Because your interest is in Southeast Asian
there are many things
culture.
Still I do not know about Manipuri, but we do know that Manipuri settlements are there in Mandalay before Mandalay was founded, and we call the race Pauna. Pauna means men coming from formerly people think that they come from Pune. Pune is a town in India. No, it doesn't come from there. They have been here since 400 years ago.
Okay.
And when Mandalay was founded, they found themselves right in the center of Mandalay, and we call it Mitai or something like.
Okay.
Mide or Mitai, in our Pamis, Pamis way. And still, they enjoy their culture. They are a separate group, not intermarrying with Burmese or other races. But
so what you're trying to say is they've been able to protect their own culture and identity, even though they've been there in Myanmar for so long.
They have their own festivals now being done, and then they went along with their own ways, and they keep their
So it'll be interesting to understand how they have been able to protect their identity.
Yes, it is. The study has not been made.
Because particularly in Myanmar, what we have seen is the political situation there compels everyone to actually conform to a particular this thing. So how is it? How do, since you're
they are peaceful people,
Okay.
They never.
So the Myanmari people let them just exist as they are.
They never make any conflict with the Burmese or any other race.
Okay.
They are peaceful people. There are.
But the
groups.
Meiteis in particular,
yes.
have been known to have made forays into Myanmar territory in past. We have been known to attack your pagodas. So
that was long time ago.
Has the thing changed?
Since they settled, they made no problems at all.
Okay.
And they are in harmony with the Burmese people.
Okay.
And there are groups in Lower Burma as well. And one group along the small river, which joins the Irrawaddy, big river Irrawaddy, opposite Jakain, there were settlements, many settlements, but we don't find any Mitai or any Pona there. But all the populations in all these villages are replaced by the Burmese. But we still find their culture still there,
Okay.
Yes.
So what is it that they're able to? How is it that they're able to actually, apart from the government not interfering, government not putting any stricture on them to change over or whatever, how do you think they've been able to conserve their identity so long?
They never involved in politics.
Local politics.
They stay away from politics and they stay with their own culture. They maintain their own culture. And for example, the temples were left behind. The Meitei or Pona temples were left behind. But it is maintained by the Burmese. Still maintained by the Burmese.
But one thing I've been told is that anyone, the Meiteis or whatever, they have to take a Burmese name if they are citizen of Burma.
Yes.
Is that
yes,
correct?
they have two names. One is their own names, and the other is the Burmese name, because they are going into the Burmese society.
Okay.
And they have to take the Burmese names as well.
So if you want to be employed in the Burmese government or Myanmar government, you do have to use your Myanmari name instead
they
of your
use their
Manipuri
Myanmar
name.
names.
Yeah. So it is one of the prerequisites that if you want to be in the service of the government, that you have to be having a name.
Rarely I found them, serving the government, any government in Burma. They stay away. That's why they can maintain their identity. This is one point.
Okay. I'll come back to you. What are you going to talk about this, Dr. Franquest? Yeah.
Well, no, we're gonna. I'll be presenting a conservation project we are currently developing in Mandalay, the former royal capital of Myanmar.
Okay.
And so it's. I think because we visited yesterday Conga Fort, and Somi told us that the Manipuri had a tradition of building royal palaces in wood, and it happens that in Myanmar, the monarchies use the same kind of tradition. So it would be interesting to discuss with our Manipuri counterparts and see what kind of traditions they had here and compare them with what we are
So
doing.
tell us a little bit about your conservation work with the Royal Palace of Mandalay.
Yeah, so it's not. It's actually not the conservation of the royal palace itself. It's a building that was located inside the royal palace, but which was relocated at a later time because it's where the king, one of the king, had died, and his descendant thought that it would be inauspicious to keep this building inside the palace premises. So he decided as a tribute to dismantle it and relocate it outside the royal city.
Okay.
So, and that's, as a result, it's the only surviving structure of the royal palace, because it was bombed during World War II. And so, as Dr. Timanji has, we all agree on this, it's probably one of the last. It's the only surviving structure of a former royal palace for the entire Southeast Asia.
Okay.
So that's why it's really significant.
It's very significant and important for the entire Southeast Asia. In fact, the entire world.
Yeah, well, at least for Southeast Asia, definitely.
Okay.
And so that's a project which is actually developed, and I think it's very interesting to note that because of the political opening in Myanmar, the project is being developed between the US State Department, the Myanmar Culture Ministry, and the World Monuments Fund, which is a US-based foundation dedicated to preserving ancient sites throughout the world.
Okay, fine. Did you find any similarities between? I think you have made a tour of the Conga.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, Somi was saying that we would probably discuss these matters, and you have some visual materials that would allow us to see how this Conga Palace looked like. And I'm really, I find it's fascinating. I mean, I'm already excited to see what kind of material we're going to be able to look at, because, I mean, on the Myanmar side, there's a lot of visual materials, there's a lot of photographic records, and it's been, so, I mean, I'll be happy to share this with Somi and his Manipuri counterparts.
Okay. Will there be in future, I mean, any similar projects that can be taken up in Manipur? I think Somi will be working on that, right?
Actually, I did start talking to World Monuments Fund at one time about Conga.
Yeah.
So they know about it, but that was before it was given to the Manipur government in 2004. So we need to talk about it. The conservation, how it is done, is actually kind of key here, because so much is not there in Conga. So much is not there. I mean, Conga is extraordinary for what is not there.
Yeah.
So the question which Francois was asking was, what happened to the palace? Why is it empty? You know, even the Conga Sa is a new one.
Yeah.
So what happened to the old one? So there's a history of destruction, but the destruction is also partly willful and also just material. We happen, as Francois was saying, we have buildings made of mud and wood and bamboo, and so they degrade. So it falls within the whole very common tradition, especially in Asia, of renewable buildings and so on. So we are not a monumental culture.
Like the Mughals.
Yes, like the Mughals, or even the wonderful pagodas of Myanmar. So we actually have another expert on Pagan temple architecture and frescoes who has joined us for the conference, Dr. Piet Pyo Cho, from Yangon, from the Ministries of Education, and he'll be talking about their preservation with artwork and so on. We talk more about performance because that is where our culture is at.
Okay.
So some of the differences will happen. So whatever conversation we have about how conservation happens is really something that we have to work with current thinking, which may not be in Manipur, which may not be the same as conservational thinking in the rest of the world today.
Okay. So you yengiba area se ekoi cultural heritage with a monument lom the area karen emphasis practicing heritage me am sidni have particularly any emphasis people area am the labor
emphasis people the meta ni area say sacred ni.
Okay.
It is a sacred that is actually the important part of Conga.
Okay.
It's koigi Conga si the port yam labor natte hariba koigi
Conga significance to never
koigi Taj Mahal labor lam natte koigi the Great Wall of China labor lam natte hariba koigi heritage the ayamba the kok manungda natraga koigi movement the labor aduna meta oibani abstract oibani adu masi karamaina samjanna handa ke for the 21st century.
Okay, that's going to be a challenge.
The challenge.
Okay, that will be.
So aduna koi Imasi Foundation gi koina masigi conference yauri se Imasi Foundation na masi conference presentation tauri se adu gi maram na ni hariba kai no the koi trustees me am se koi agasham the guru su yamung ni mai or su tamuratan at whose place we're having the conference at Chorus the koi me am say it's a matter of great concern. How do we preserve our heritage and what is the heritage
which
that
is
we are
not so concrete like
so
some other
exactly.
Anyway, we'll take a break here but we'll come back after a short break and discuss more deftly about how actually Somi and his group plans to actually protect our heritage. Welcome back. Break ki mamangda akoina agenda Manipur da khana jarmi se Manipur amasung Myanmar ani gi heritage si karmain tawdana akoi conservation tawba Manipur gi conserve tawno honabada understand porkadagi habigi matangdani akoi gi Sangai Festival ga Mari Lenina Pangthok Kadoriba, Tang Kulumdegina Kunga Bhau, Pangthok Kadoriba, Myanmar Manipur Conference on Conservation of Cultural Heritage. Somi's made it very clear that the cultural heritage that we are looking at is not the kind that you, Dr. Francois, you've been involved in doing it. But in your talk with Somi or this group, have you found any area where you can actually put your expertise into use in case of Manipur? We do have some structures still existing in Kangla. Apart from the fact that, that central idea, the sacredness of Kangla as a site of, the power that Manipuri king willed at one point in time.
Well, we haven't had a chance to talk really deeply on these matters, but what I would emphasize is more questions of methodology. We've been working on this kind of reconstructing the different phase through which the building in Mandalay was renovated. And so I think it would be very useful also for the Kangla fort to see how the building looked like, but also at what stage it was renovated, and try to understand what the renovation meant for the people who did it at that time.
Okay.
And I think we don't want to bring in ready-made recipes for renovation. It's more like we bring in methodological tools, and then it's for Manipuri people to decide whether they want to use these tools, or whether to find their way of actually reconstructing their past and tracing back this cultural legacy.
Okay. But are you looking beyond Kangla, Somi? Kangla khakta natte na khoi kano gi se.
Natte.
Khoi kano Kanchipur da Hilllock to the palace.
Akoi gi di thabak kari tawgada ge habagi conference natte. Akoi conference di hawbada ngai bane. Akoi gi tinaba unaba. Sida akoi kari no haba se. Sida gi yeng akoi heritage yeng ko sida di monumental heritage, akoi gi material heritage laiba Kangla go masu lai ko. Ada akoi ni yeng ka the crafts ka si yeng kani, textiles yeng kani, loan yeng kani, akoi ariba loan ge situation kari no akoi yeng kani. Ko si mayam se loina ma tinjalakpada akoi conversation ama khak lakani hariba. Masigi sidagi thola kanda Jose Francois na haba akoi gi recipe ma puthokpa gi wa natte, or to say that this is what we're going to do next to save cultural heritage of Myanmar and Manipur. We're starting to explore the issues to see what kind of thinking there is that we can bring together from both sides that can mean something for both sides.
Okay, Dr. Every time in Manipur we talk about the eastern door opening. We have a saying in Manipur, all things will become right once we call it Nongpok Thong. Nongpok Thong means the eastern part where the sun rises. So basically we're looking at a closer tie with the Myanmars. What do you see this whole, in the government's lookist policy, and then this trade route coming in? Do you think this is going to have impact on the way how we interact with each other? Will it be more on materialistic side, buying and thing, or how strong is the cultural movement there in Myanmar, which can actually link up with the cultural movement here in Manipur?
To tell you the truth, there was similarities and dissimilarities on both sides. Similarities, we see since prehistoric time, there are stone implements, the ceramic, the utensils. There are many similarities, and the nearest. There will be a lot of intercurrent relationship between the two countries in the past, and in the future as well, provided all the roads are open and there is a safety passage between the two countries, and there will be more development of the cultural relations. And even now, I saw one cultural relation recently, over 100 years ago in the past, one pair of lions in in front of the palace, your palace.
Kanglasa.
This is
Okay,
Burmese.
Kanglasa, okay.
This is Burmese, purely Burmese.
Okay.
Yes.
So we tend to think of it as Manipuri. So you say it's Burmese.
No, it is Burmese, but tinged with Manipuri, styles and designs.
Uh-huh. So when a Myanmari looks at Manipuri culture, how do you look at it? How do you look at it? Do you look at it as a sort of the Myanmari culture, or is it? Do you recognize the Manipuri culture as its unique?
People used to think, the greater country is the main, from which the weaker country borrowed. This is wrong. There is always interrelationship, and we cannot say which side copies which one unless we make the thorough research. But according to my learning from my friends, that this is formerly built by the Burmese army occupying here, but it was destroyed later on, and this is the replacement, and now it is bearing the Manipuri the characteristics. So
it's kind of a amalgamation between the Burmese culture and the Meitei culture.
Yes, yes. I really think so.
Man haibana koi ki Kanglasa se Burma gi chindit ka manai haiba. The chindit su Kanglasa ka chap manaba. Except chindit si machi pandaba. Adamane machi palisi kari haiba.
So machi sina koi element with it.
Exactly. Machi hapsala pis Meitei hapsala in haiba. But chindit sidi yam na lay hariba. Akoi the chindit adum pangi marak but Burma da yam phang badinati hariba. Koi imasi foundation logo is chindit ni hariba. Kambi sing chindit. The chindit ko was koi the machi hapsala ka man sugana hange kenogi lik am sirami koi kangla shase lik sikari no ai khangdaba because I'm not really an expert. I get the exploration gi wani hariba. I the khangning bado adu koi gi lai hui su koi gi partner ne lai hui su research the traditional music as koi yaw pena gi kari no ko ngasi. We went to the museum today.
Yes.
And we saw a range of musical instruments. And he was saying, oh, we have this in Burma, we have that in Burma, we have this. Symbols.
Okay.
And so many musical instruments that you recognize.
Many similarities, We cannot decide yet, unless we make thorough research. And we should not jump to a conclusion yet.
Okay. So, as someone who's very interested in Southeast Asian history, do you have a plan to kind of, make a particular study on this Manipuri culture and then link it up with?
There are few people doing this, So I should rather say the study is weak. I cannot study alone, I cannot stand alone. We have to combine together all our efforts to make it a sensible progress. So far, there are very few people doing this. Of course, in future, I hope that this will well develop.
Okay. We have a Center for Myanmar Studies in our university. Is there a way we can link it up this?
Yes, we are actually link it. Koi Center for Myanmar Studies ge ojana bakumaga sem yawi hari. Koi especially koi MU da chatna koi satatara ni thosu tharakani.
Okay.
Koi conference da yawdur. Conference yamna limited ne. Koi wari saba yana mi sikhara yaman jati hari ba.
Okay.
Aduga conference haibagi wad ni yam free flowing oiba conference ne. Aduga hobudagi mase art and culture ki conference ne haijariba. Chumnagi scholarship ki shiyarukani, but mainly for art, artists and culture. Aduna ne koina tamoratan na sponsor oibidana masu mapamga se free the pidana chorus tawrise because it's a conference about art and artists and the culture that art and artists produce. So masida koina Shanghai Festival ya was a because we have an added dimension of discussion. Because what is culture that we are presenting? What is culture that we should be preserving in order to present to outside visitors, for instance? Aduna masiki dane koina yam kana nungaidori se masida masiki wari sa basida.
So I important point the way I see it, all three of my panel members are a sort of conservationists in a way. ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯤ ꯍꯥꯟꯅꯒꯤ ꯂꯩꯕ ꯄꯣꯠ ꯀꯟꯖꯔቭ ꯀꯃꯥꯏꯅ ꯇꯧꯒꯗꯒꯦ ꯁꯩꯗ ꯇꯨꯔꯤꯖꯝꯁꯤꯒ ꯅꯪ ꯉꯁꯥꯏ ꯍꯥꯏꯈꯤꯕ ꯁꯨꯃꯤꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯈꯤꯕ ꯇꯨꯔꯤꯖꯝꯁꯤ as a potential money earning ꯀꯩꯅꯣ ꯑꯣꯏꯅ every nation ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯇꯤ ꯏꯟꯗꯁꯇ꯭ꯔꯤ ꯑꯣꯟꯊꯣꯔꯛꯑꯦꯕ ꯇꯨꯔꯤꯖꯝ ꯄꯣꯠꯁꯦ ꯑꯗꯣ ꯇꯨꯔꯤꯖꯝꯒꯤ ꯁꯦ ꯗꯕꯜ ꯑꯦꯖ ꯁꯣꯔꯠ ꯀꯥꯏꯟ ꯑꯣꯐ ꯊꯤꯡꯅꯦ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯥꯟꯁꯤꯗ ꯃꯤ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯥꯟꯁꯤꯗ ꯋꯥꯏꯜ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ rich cultural heritage it's a pull factor for tourist ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯌꯦꯡꯕ ꯂꯥꯛꯅꯤꯡꯉꯤꯁꯤ ꯁꯤꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯣ tourist ꯃꯌꯥꯝꯅ ꯂꯥꯛꯑꯀꯥꯟꯗ ꯃꯗꯨꯒꯤ degradation ꯃꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯀꯩ ꯍꯥꯏꯇꯥꯔꯦ ꯃꯌꯥꯝ ꯑꯃ ꯊꯣꯔꯛꯀꯗꯧꯕ ꯂꯩꯕꯒꯤ ꯄꯣꯠꯇꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯑꯋꯥꯕꯗꯤ ꯂꯩꯇꯕ꯭ꯔꯥ the challenge of actually safeguarding it
ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯑꯋꯥꯕꯗꯅꯦ ꯈ꯭ꯋꯥꯏꯗꯒꯤ ꯃꯔꯨ ꯑꯣꯏꯔꯤꯗꯤ ꯀꯔꯤꯒꯤꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯗ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛꯀꯤ ꯇꯨꯔꯤꯁꯁꯤ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯅꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯁꯦ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯗꯤ ꯄꯩꯁꯥ ꯐꯪꯒꯅꯤꯗ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯦꯀꯣ ꯑꯗꯨꯒꯤ ꯗꯤꯕꯦꯂꯞꯃꯦꯟꯠꯀꯤ ꯀꯩꯅꯣꯅꯦ ꯁꯦꯚꯤꯌꯔꯅꯤ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯅ ꯁꯤ ꯂꯥꯛꯑꯗꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏ ꯌꯥꯔꯅꯤ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯅꯨꯡꯉꯥꯏꯔꯅꯤ ꯄꯩꯁꯥ ꯌꯥꯝ ꯇꯥꯜꯂꯅꯤ ꯑꯗꯨꯗ ꯏꯝꯄꯦꯛꯇꯨ ꯀꯔꯤꯅꯣ ꯍꯥꯏꯕꯒꯤ ꯑꯃ ꯂꯩ ꯑꯅꯤꯁꯨ ꯍꯥꯟꯅ ꯍꯥꯏꯖꯈ꯭ꯔꯦꯗꯅ ꯕꯠ ꯍꯧꯖꯤꯛ ꯍꯥꯏꯗꯣꯔꯤꯁꯤ ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯜꯆꯔꯁꯦ ꯃꯁꯤ ꯀꯜꯆꯔꯁꯤ ꯁꯤ ꯌꯦꯡꯕ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯗꯧꯔꯤꯅꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ ꯇꯨꯔꯤꯁ ꯑꯃꯅ ꯃꯅꯤꯄꯨꯔ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯗꯧꯔꯤꯁꯤ ꯒꯣꯋꯥꯒꯤ ꯕꯤꯆ expect ꯇꯧꯗꯅ ꯂꯥꯛꯄ ꯅꯠꯇꯦ ꯍꯥꯏꯔꯤꯕ
ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤ ꯀꯜꯆꯔꯁꯤꯡ ꯂꯥꯛꯇꯣꯏꯅꯤ
ꯑꯒ꯭ꯔꯥꯒꯤ ꯇꯥꯖ ꯃꯍꯜ expect ꯇꯧ ꯂꯥꯛꯄ ꯅꯠꯇꯦꯕ ꯃꯣꯏ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯗꯧꯔꯤꯁꯤ what is unique and special about Manipur ꯁꯤꯒꯤꯗꯃꯛꯇ ꯂꯥꯛꯀꯗꯧꯔꯤꯅꯦꯕ the tourist will come to see what is unique about Manipur not expecting Manipur to look like Kashmir or Goa or Kerala or Bali or New York so Manipur has to be Manipur which then begs the question what is Manipur what is the cultural heritage that makes Manipur unique. Karino Manipur na atopa mafamdagi khare atop-topna.
Adugi uniqueness to budi akoina showcase tawrani na khallaseba. The question is madugi to showcase tawganda lakadori mi myamse akoigi di like you said kanomda natedana it's nothing it's not about monuments it's not about sea beaches it's about a living culture nebu. And most likely living culture gumbasida sigi tourism se is going to impact a lot. Akoigi leiba nat ki matawi mayam si akoigi practice never it's a living thing never. So linking that with tourism ki can was a little bit of ironic way.
Yes, because you know sometimes then you begin to sell your culture.
Yes.
For
Culture,
the tourist.
culture and
Yes, then you're beginning to package your culture in order to sell it to a consumer who happens to be the foreign tourist or the domestic tourist coming. You know, so for that reason, the conference is meant to add the initial conversation to say, like, what is it that we should be preserving, so that we don't actually have a degradation of our culture. That we show the good part, the strong part, the rich part about this culture.
Safeguarding is one of the.
But also, it will promote culture because it is only when we safeguard our own culture that people will come to see what is unique about our culture.
Kannanabgi wakhanduga loinena promote
tawgadamne tourism chawkhatpadusu akoigi si leirakanda akoigi lanse phajana senarakanda adudagi chawkhatpasu helakani haiba. So actually what we are proposing is to take part in the conversation about what is the model of tourism that Manipur is going to be building.
Okay. Franka, you have been involved in actually conserving this thing. I mean, restoring it. And you must be knowing the challenges that you face from the tourists.
Oh yeah.
How do you deal with it?
Well, for the time being, we haven't reached the stage where we are designing a tourist strategic plan because we are really
I'm not
doing
talking about Manipur as such. I'm talking about in general.
In general, well, I think the Myanmar government is very much aware of the tourist impact. The opening up is triggering.
Democracy coming in.
Yeah. So I think everybody is trying to find a way, a strategy to make sure that tourism does not impact so much the living culture, the living
Because it's not enough just putting up a signboard and saying don't touch. It's not enough because people do touch.
I think what the Myanmar government, Dr. Timanji might confirm, is trying to promote is a kind of eco tourism, whereby local communities benefit from the tourist influx, but at the same time make sure that the environment is protected and the cultural heritage is protected too. And it's a kind of, as they say in Myanmar, it's a win-win situation. So.
Okay. Okay, you're from Myanmar. How big is the challenge? Because Myanmar has been an enigma for the rest of the world, and it's opening up recently. And
Yes, yes,
I
just
see
opening
waves
up.
of people going there. You
Yes.
know, now it must be a real challenge for Myanmars to actually conserve their culture and heritage. We can learn something from you. How is it in Myanmar? Because that will be one of the themes that I think
you
Somi is going to
mentioned
address.
about the living culture,
Yes.
and this is being started by now, since about 4 years ago. Manipur University is sending scholars to study Meitei settlements in Mandalay. They are now doing as much as they can, and they explore into their traditions, their belief, their religion, the way they eat, the way they make weaving, etc. They are now starting this study already 4 years ago, because I was involved in this affair.
No, what I'm trying to understand is, it's okay, fine. No, they're having this culture, this life, but with the influx of the tourists, with the increase in their income level, with increase in standard in life, things are going to take some change. So how are you going to deal with that actually?
Yes, as far as I see, there is no museum for the Meitei people. They have a lot
No,
of
I'm not
things.
talking about Meitei people as such. I'm talking about the Myanmarese culture and heritage. Is it going to be swept away by this wave of tourists that's going to come in, or are you going to be protecting
There
it?
is too much of tourism. There can be some
Problem.
drastic change. Drastic change. Affecting the people, and in some countries, tourism is destroying their old traditions and their old ways, old values. But so far, Myanmar has not developed tourism very much.
No, but it's that's precisely the point, because it's not developed. People are looking at it and trying to have access to it. Then there will be a wave. Then, if you are not prepared, you're going to have a real problem.
It depends upon our people and the government.
Okay.
How far we will react to it, we cannot.
Okay. I was hoping to learn some lesson from Myanmar, but obviously I think
It's a
Myanmar is
bit-
also
it's a
an
bit too
nascent
early.
state.
It's a bit too early.
Yeah, it's a bit too early, actually. Yes.
ꯑꯩꯈꯣꯏꯒꯤꯗꯤ
No, I think Somi, you must have come across this mad comic,
Yes.
this cartoon where you have this, Hawaiian island where all, Western style. Then they see this ship, tourists coming, and then they put on their,
Yes.
dress and then
Yes.
start with all those things.
You
So, is the picture going to be something like that? That's the fear that we have.
yeah. I mean, the problem is not simply other people's affecting. It's really how we think we should be responding. For instance, Rupa, you will know that I'm kind of involved in preservation of the Manipuri pony.
Yes.
Right? So we have this thing in Hangang, where we have 200 acres. We're still in the process of acquiring and building. We're going through the necessary legal steps. But so we were proposing something that was going to be friendly for ecotourism, to keep it natural and not to build too many things, to keep it Manipuri, so that hanegi sagon thamba dum thamba commons thadokna thamba lampenda
Attraction do
piece other some the so. But on the other hand, akoigi India gi development model that is habagi lakpanina hojik sagon apai ba masani na hojik ama haire yam chawum ka aduna sagon from the chamga bharaktre aduga statue ma sani haira adomna paisa thadani haira adu akoi sagon
So what is your
sagon
priority?
sina plastic bag chadana hapu harang chadana sorokta gari na
Precisely.
thom leira aduga somda murtim sana somda paisa thadani haira masigi priority se this is a little warped because the akoi na hana preserve sab this one of the race course han in tarome one of the proposals was to put a race course inside the sanctuary. Sanctuary manungda, how can you put a race course inside the sanctuary? See, commercialization never. Boy kalina mi karana kanbana oh sila di paisa lakani tourism ki paisa. But it's betraying the very thing that is going to draw people in. Race course everywhere.
You can go to Calcutta and see it.
Everywhere. Akoi di hangang di ibudo margin ki lai mo khongda thamim ne hariba because no other culture has a god of pony, god of polo. Margin
Mari original habitat to never Prajana Yenge
Yes, adu neighbor like destroy tora murti ma saraga adagi koi race course ma hapdu ke kana dori.
So sigi conference se ojiki Manipur ji tourism sangai festival tabna tourist mayam kopsilak to isi sidagi akoi siumba commercial activities lakpa impact mayam si khara karwai to na protect to ya gatar gi have gi emphasis on the core area di way discussion gi.
Oidori koi chai chaba yai, but because we're not a very popular opinion viewpoint, but we do think that you have to choose a certain kind of tourism, whether you want a tourism that's like Bhutan's tourism, Bali's tourism, Kathmandu tourism, Bangkok tourism, akoi infrastructure na kari. My main worry is that Manipur and Northeast India, as well as Myanmar, has been isolated for so long that it is weak. We don't know how to deal with the outside world. We don't have the strength to deal with the outside world. We are like plants that have not been getting enough sunshine. We're sickly. So if you have too many things like this happening, where you have right now 65% of India's budget for tourism is coming to Northeast India.
Okay.
2/3 of the budget is coming to 40 million people.
Okay.
9% of the budget is coming to Manipur. But how is that going to impact upon culture? Murti lehoraga sagon sigrati. Then what is that murti about? What is the statue going to be?
I'll wrap up on that point. Murti lehoraga sagon sirdi kari kanari ba haiba wafam somiro ina thamambado. It's an image you can take back. You can think over it. Akoina tourism promote to matamda tourist na yengba lakadru pot maktu sihan graba mangan bo targadi kari kanari ba haiba wafam doni whole point of Myanmar amasung Manipur gi culture amasung heritage discuss tong the next 3 days da discuss of the matang da ngasi agenda Manipur da kanari se thank you very much Somi for all those insights Dr. G Funkers thank you very much for joining us on our agenda Manipur masini ngasi gi agenda Manipur impact news da every Sunday we come to you at same time matangi Sunday da soidum laksagani atopa agenda amagalona ngasi gi onadi matang ngasi da kaini athang lozerage thank you very much for watching us.